So good morning. It's a pleasure to be presenting at the Chinachem conference to you this morning. I'm Trott from Foster+Partners. I'm the head of sustainability, and I'm going to talk to you about one of our projects, Ombú, in Madrid, and I'll take you through our thinking of how we designed that project with specific examples about how we helped the community and how we helped the environment. So without more ado, if we go to the presentation. So the questions that I've been asked to address for you is how the community and the environment benefit from refurbishment of the historic industrial building of Ombú. That's a shot of it as it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Before we get into the details of the project, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the way we think about projects in sustainability terms. And what we do is we have 10 themes that we developed back in 2014 to think about all aspects of the project, specifically well-being, community impact, energy and carbon, mobility, resources, water, land and ecology, social equity, and then planning for change and feedback. And we find those a very helpful way of looking at all the subjects that are important. Just after that, the United Nations published the Sustainable Development Goals, and we find when we look at them that they all map very well to our framework. Our framework is more specific for building design and for the built environment, so we use that, but it is a good match to the Sustainable Development Goals. Another thing that we think is very important is an understanding of the principles of the circular economy. The circular economy really is about how to do more with less. As time goes on into the future, with more and more buildings being needed to be built, we have to be much more efficient with the use of the materials that we have. So the first thing that we always try and do is to retain a building in use whenever we can, and that's what we've done at Ombú. We also use components again, if we can, and where necessary, we recycle materials. So this was a very early presentation and discussion in a workshop we had with our clients. It's in Spanish, as you can see, but the point here is that all of these particular elements around the design of the building were very carefully considered with the client. They wanted to know about materials. They wanted to know about the social positive impact of the building. They wanted to know about how to reduce consumption. So it was a very rounded agenda, and they wanted all of these things to be considered right from the very start of the design. So if I just take us back to 1903, that's when the building was originally built, an industrial building, which was an energy plant for the generation of power in Madrid. We wanted to respect heritage and to keep the building in use for as much of its life as possible and to extend it well into the future. It's a wonderful old building and it had plenty of space and it had lots of opportunities for us. It is a part of the urban regeneration of this part of Madrid. All of these projects here shown in blue and named are all part of the same regeneration area. Our project Ombú is on the right-hand side and it's the red building picked out. At the end of the building, and I will show you how we got there, we think we've had a really positive social impact. We've greened the area, we've brought a lot of the building back into use, and we've made it very available to the public. So if we look at the overall campus, we've introduced 12,000 square meters of landscape. We've got a 9,000 square meter office and then 2,000 square meters of additional amenities outside the main building, which we've constructed adjacent. We have an 80% reuse of water on the site by harvesting rainwater. We have added 300 trees and we've added 12,000 square meters of landscaping around the building. It's quite close to the train station and that allows a reduction of 50% car parking and car use in comparison to normal situations elsewhere in Madrid. So we think that's very important, is to reduce the use of cars and to get people walking in and out of the site and in and out of the regeneration area. This is a high-level view of the site as it was when we started the redevelopment. As you can see, there's a lot of ground-level car parking and other hard landscape. There's very little greenery there at all, and it was a very industrial, urban place, which we wanted to change considerably. We've managed to retain 10,000 tonnes of brickwork that was in the walling and the masonry construction. We've cleaned it up, we've improved it, but basically we've kept all of the main brickwork. We retained all of the main trusses in the roof of the building, so the 12 main steel trusses were cleaned and refurbished, but we retained all of those. We've added inside these mezzanine floors, and the mezzanine floors are made in a lightweight, prefabricated and demountable timber construction. There is 400 cubic meters of glulam and 1,200 cubic meters of CLT forming the decks. The use of timber has helped also because it's sequestered 1,640 tonnes of carbon dioxide in the timber before we've started the construction. So if I talk a little bit about some of the technical aspects of the work, we're very careful to understand that our designs have to do the best to achieve the requirements of the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement requires a balance of emissions and absorption by 2050, which basically means we have to get carbon dioxide emissions down very low, and we have to increase absorption throughout the world to absorb the emissions that are still there. One of the things that we do with our projects is we calculate just the carbon, and we also then calculate the ecological footprint. And the ecological footprint is a really good way of understanding how much you can absorb carbon and how much you can deal with other waste streams. And it creates a complete balance. If we have an ecological footprint of one planet, then what that means is not only have we absorbed all the carbon that is the waste stream from a project, but we also have sufficient use and sufficient space for other activities such as using timber for other things, for creating food, which is very important for people, for creating food for animals. So basically, it means that we are in balance with nature. So how do we look at carbon and how do we calculate carbon? Well, we take a very long-term view and we look very deeply at many different areas. We look at how we are going to approach the design and the preliminaries of the design, such as setting up the site and making the site ready for construction. We look at the structure and where the carbon is in the structure. We look at where the carbon is in the facade and the environmental services, that is the MEP plant. We also look into the future and we say, how is this building going to be fitted out and refitted many times through its use? And that takes us into refurbishment, which is when will this building again need to be refurbished, rather like we're refurbishing it right at the moment. We look at the energy consumption throughout the life, and we look quite crucially at how people will commute to and from the building, because that can, in some cases, bring as much carbon as the whole operation of the building together. So it's very important to avoid carbon-intensive transport. In this case, we calculate 11.7 tonnes of carbon per square metre over the whole life of the building. Now, these are quite high numbers because we actually use a hybrid input-output methodology, which means that we don't just look at the materials, we look at labour, we look at plant, and we look at other Scope 3 effects within that carbon. So throughout the building, we model and search for many parameters, and the three that I'm featuring here are: we look at embodied carbon within the building, which was 7.9 tonnes. We look at the operational and transport carbon, which in this case was 0 for the operational, because all of the energy that will be used on site will be from Acciona and it will be green energy. But the transport carbon is 2.2 tonnes, and that's the commuting. We also have a one planet ecological footprint, which means we are Paris compliant, and therefore no more than 2 degrees of climate forcing will result from a building of this nature. To help us with the design, we said, well, we imagined what would happen if we provided a building the same size, but it was completely new. And we checked that, and it would be 12.5 tons of carbon per square metre. If we could have reused the existing building and built no more, it would have been 7.9 tons of carbon, which would have been a significant reduction. But the programme required a little bit more space on the site, so we did have a modest amount of new build adjacent, so we ended up with 9.4 tons of carbon, but still a significant reduction over 12.5. So in all, we have something like a 25% reduction in carbon from the embodied processes of manufacturing the building. So where does that get us? That gets us to a one planet ecological footprint. So we do have the important balance of sources of emissions, mainly carbon in our case, and the sinks to absorb them. So we know that that will mean no climate change will result throughout the period of the use of this building because of that balance. So therefore, we know that we are on the safe side of a 2 degrees centigrade climate forcing temperature. So some of the other aspects of the building that are therefore manifest themselves through this construction process. In the post-pandemic world, it's a really healthy environment for people to work in. People can work in the gardens around the outside and in the open spaces that we worked outside in the beautiful weather and the climate of Madrid. We have a very biophilic and healthy surrounding, which is very good for people's contact with nature. It's very good for their productivity, and it's very good for their general health and well-being. The outdoor spaces are completely transformed in comparison to what they were before, which means that people, all of the people of Madrid can use this area now as they pass through. It's completely open to the people of Madrid. It's improved the quality of the area. It has not just super greening, but it's become a destination for people to go to. They can come to it from any part of the surrounding areas. And it's a really good way of the people who will occupy the building, and it's just being fitted out, attracting new talents to come and work in their building, because it's a lovely place to work. It's much nicer than a typical closed office building. And with all of these features, we think it is a really sound business case. We were delighted to feature this building in the Beyond the Business Case report of the World Green Building Council at the end of last year. And it's well written up there if you would like to know more about the building and its principles. And we took it along and we presented our ideas and the methodology that I've explained. We took that to COP26 and we presented it in several different venues so as people could actually see how we use this holistic approach. We then use the mathematics of ecological footprint and carbon calculation to support the holistic approach to bring about a complete transformation of the building. So how do the community and environment benefit from refurbishing the historic industrial building of Ombú? The question that I was setting out to answer. Well, we think these are the results. We've increased respect for heritage. We've increased urban regeneration. We've increased biodiversity and ecology. We've increased accessible outdoor public space. We've increased employment in the area. And we've increased the value of the existing building, the existing asset. At the same time, we've reduced hard surfaces. We've reduced car use. We've reduced pollution. We've reduced resource use. We've reduced carbon dioxide. We've reduced water consumption. We've reduced other waste streams, and overall, we've reduced climate change. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I do wish you all the best for the rest of your conference today, and I hope that you have many good presentations and you have really good discussions. So thank you very much.